Namaste and welcome to this first ever Satsang questions and answers. And if you are new to our channel, we just made a change in how we do things. I decided that I would like to try to put the questions that have been sent in for Satsang over the website into a session like this so we could answer all the questions together. And then it's easier for you to find your question as well. It's all in one volume. What I used to do is answer a few each satsang we did live on a Thursday, and that worked for a while. But I think it's easier now to do it this way. So if you do have a question that you don't want to ask live in the satsang, um, you can send it in and it'll be read out anonymously here, and I'll answer it. And you can use the contact us page at helenhamilton.org, and we'll put a link in the description of this video with that link in there too, that information. Sometimes people just don't want to ask their question live or feel a little shy or just literally can't attend a satsang live to ask. So Anish is here also to read the questions for me. So thank you very much, Anish. Whenever you're ready, we'll get started.
Thank you, Helen. Hi, everyone. The first question for today. Hi, Helen. I love your teachings, and your videos and books are so helpful to me. I see that I still have a big issue with needing approval from others, mostly people I work with, or a best way is to work with this. I love contemplation, but not sure that it is the best way to get at the root of this. Any suggestions would be much appreciated. With much love and gratitude.
Could you just reread that again, just the main bit, because we just lost the sound for a moment.
I see that I still have a big issue with needing approval from others, mostly people I work with or acquaintances. I'm not sure what the best way is to work with this. I love contemplation, but not sure if that is the best way to get to the root of this.
Thank you. Yeah. Contemplation for sure. If we can see that we're looking for something from other beings, and in this situation, approval, wanting others to approve of us, then it's really happening because we're assuming that it's not here right now. The approval that I'm looking for from others, there's a tendency to try to get it from the outside in. And when we try that, we're really saying that it's not here right now. I've got to get it and receive it. And that's something that seems very real when we think we're a separate self. So, what I would suggest is turning that into a question. Is it really true that I need to seek approval? Or is it really true that the approval I need is not already here? And it, of course, comes from our own deepest self, our real self. That approval is automatic of ourselves, and then we don't need that from an external place, external person. We might still get it, but it's not relied upon or depended upon. And in fact, when we're assuming that it's not here right now, which of course we all do without realizing, then it literally can't come from the outside source. And we keep needing, but not getting, as you're noticing here in what you said. So, absolutely contemplation and some questions similar to what we suggested. Based on the seeing, if I'm searching for something, I'm pretty certain it's not here already. And yet, of course, everything we must need is inside of us. As I had to ask this question as well: safety, approval, love, all of those things. So, hope that helps. Thanks, Anish.
Next question. Hi, Helen. I have been contemplating the true I and seeing its nature as infinite, changelessness, constant, spacious, stillness, silence, etc. What puzzles me is why can I only identify and experience through this one seeming body character and not anyone else. It seems so limiting and frustrating. Thank you for all you have given.
It's a very common question and something that puzzled me for a long time. If I'm infinite and everywhere, why am I only experiencing through one body mind, or so it seems? And the clue comes from the word experience, and experience is time bound and temporary and happening only in one location. Experience, by its very nature, happens only in one body and mind at once. So even if you could have an experience of what I'm thinking and feeling right now, as an example, it would still be happening in your body and mind, right? Just that one. Even if somehow you could have an experience of what everyone is thinking and feeling, as overwhelming as that might be, it would still be happening in your body and mind only. So the experience coming in through the senses and the happening in the mind and the sensations in a particular body are bound in a location, in a place where that body is, and depend upon that body for it to happen. But the knower of the experience knows itself to be omnipresent and everywhere, as you pointed to here. So the experience is always going to be in a location, but the knowingness, the one who sees, the seer, the awareness, consciousness, whatever we want to call the real self, knows itself to be omnipresent. And from there, I can inquire into my own formlessness that has no limits, no boundaries, and is inclusive of every human body in every form, of course. From there, I don't need to have everyone else's experience, nor would I want to, because I'm already experiencing myself as 8 billion human forms. And in each body mind, I might be convinced I'm only experiencing there. And yet they're all me. So rather than trying to get the experience to become something permanent or infinite, which it could never be by definition, we begin to see that it's the knowingness, the knower, the infinite knower, that knows itself to be everywhere all the time. And in fact, even then, later it's seen that as we dive deeper, even now I'm not experiencing just this body and mind. I'm experiencing all bodies and minds. And in fact, even deeper than that, I've never had an experience. You've never had an experience. There never was a separate self to have any experience. Experience, again, is not only time bound and limited and in a location, but it's in separation. There's me and what I'm experiencing. So it's always in duality. Nothing wrong with duality, of course, but it isn't ultimately true. So are you experiencing even now? And what does that mean if you're not? Something to dive into, right? Phenomena, experience is always in phenomena and manifestation, and manifestation can't tell you anything about yourself. There's nothing wrong with manifestation or phenomena, but they're happening inside you and not to you. So, hope that helps. Thank you, Anish.
Hi, Helen. I have been having some deeper and clearer insights by the day. Moments of deeply questioning present experiences. And the other day saw the illusion of time in a way that is deeper than I have experienced before. None of this would have been possible without your clear and deep teachings, so thank you very much. One of the things that has been arising in my experience is this deep sense of lack. It permeates three key areas of my life, and I can see how it is an identification with the separate self. I can see that I believe I'll get security, excitement, and fulfillment by having a better job, having a spiritual partner, and having more money, because this seems to be lacking in my experience now. But I also know that this isn't the truth. Finding a new job I like seems impossible. Finding a partner I can see, having a life with also seems impossible and actually feels with and actually feels fills me with fear a little. And getting more money seems difficult to achieve as well. Gosh, how depressing. I've spent some time contemplating on, is it true I don't get what I want, as well as focusing more on what I do want rather than what I don't. But it feels as though this is perpetuating the idea that there is anything I can get from external reality, where the truth is I have to let go of believing I am a separate person doomed to suffering and never getting what I want. I'm so exhausted with feeling like life sucks and caring about any of this nonsense. Ultimately, the mind cannot let go of this. And it's through the continuous knowing of who I am that I'll get the joy and relief I want. It just feels hard to remember that when my mind is succumbing to life sucking, and what is the point in trying in anything? I will remain to feel the same way. I guess my ultimate question is, how can I use this lack I am feeling in my experience to see the truth? Thank you again for everything.
And that's a very intelligent question. How can I use this that I'm going through right now to help me see clearer who I am? And what you described, your situation, pretty much paralleled my life. Lots of lack, and finally, like this question came up: how can this be used for me? How can this be used to further my seeing? And you said very correctly that living as your true self, or being the true self, would be the only thing that will be satisfactory for you. And when we have a challenge going on in our life like this, if we can see that our mind is showing us something that we still believe, that is in duality or separation, that no longer fits with what we have seen to be true, then we will be able to take what the mind is saying to us and use it in our inquiry. So here is a thought that pops up that is seeming very, very true to the mind, but really isn't your real self. And that is that I can need something or I can lack something. And it's a common human experience, right? If you ask all human beings in the local town that you live in, what do you need right now? They would probably give you a whole list. Things for the body that they need, things for the mind, things even for their spiritual growth. I need awakening even, here in Satsang, it seems. And this only stopped for me, lack and limitation and not enoughness, needing, when I really began to see I could not be separate from the things I want or need. And I had to really question this. Can I need anything? And it seemed a little crazy, right, when my finances were in a complete mess and my relationships were in a complete mess, to be contemplating or inquiring, can I need something? When obviously my life was screaming at me, yes, obviously, look at the phenomenal experience. But it was only when I consistently questioned what could I possibly need or lack that it began to turn around. And of course, um, the situation in our life that prompted this question, it might not disappear straight away, but you'll begin to feel differently inside straight away. What could you possibly lack if you are everywhere and everything? And the formless essence, the silence, the stillness that you are, that everything is. If we check it out again together, let's look now and see what we really are. Can it be divided? Can it be split into me and money, or me and this person who I want to draw into my life? And paradoxically, when we find that the infinite self is not divisible at all, it's not like a whole load of beings that are all made of the same essence and it's been divided up like you would slice up a pie or something. It's just this one being appearing as all these different forms. And so the very idea of need has to be eliminated from our thought process. It's totally okay to say, I would like myself to show up more in as financial resources, or I'd like to meet myself as this person I would love to encounter. But whenever we're feeling this same feeling of need, there's a separation in there, right? This thing outside of me, apparently, that I need, or this person. And with a lot of us, it's money, really. We feel very separate to it, that we have to receive it, earn it, save it. These are all ways of holding ourselves in a place of separation. And that might have been okay many, many years ago when we thought we were a separate person, but now it's become too painful in our consciousness, and our mind's trying to fix this problem, but it doesn't know that the problem doesn't exist for you, the indivisible, infinite consciousness. So whatever the body seems to need is only another way that you are appearing. Everything is you. This body, everything, money, everything. And so really questioning, as crazy as it might sound, is it really true I could need anything? And not referencing your experience to answer that question, because your experience of lack, not enoughness, is reflecting this idea that you need. Instead, you can come to the understanding I am all the things that I could possibly need. And it's just a question of softening my vibration around that, not needing. The very essence of need points to the fact it's not already here. And that's not really true for you anymore, is it? Because you are everywhere and everything. But here we're still believing that something you want or need could be absent. And that's actually, if you think about it, a very denial of your own self. It's like saying you're not here. That's why it hurts so much. So just to summarize simply, really looking at this question, can you need or lack anything? If you did and could, it would have to be separate to you and different to you and outside of you. And by then, the very fact that there'd be something other than you to need, you would not be infinite. It would be definitely finite. It's an old way of thinking that really does seem real, and therefore we really, really experience it. But to transcend it, we really must come to question this. So, as much as your mind may tell you it's crazy to even ask this question, do it anyway and see what happens. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, so grateful for your presence in this life. My heart feels so much, and the loving Sangha. My question is, when coming into or being in relationship with an apparent other, does anything feel different for you now in your body or mind? Or is it just unmoving, no different with or without them? I have no desire to try to be a certain way. That's not the way I am being. But the question came up out of curiosity and out of reflecting on the potential mix up here between intimacy and entanglement, along with all these concepts, labels that are put on relationships. It's all just apparent sensations anyway. He is me, I am him. There is no other, yet right now, there is a feeling in this body which is associated with a connection. What are these sensations? What is attraction, connection to an apparent other, if there is no causality? Much love.
Good question. And yeah, the experience, for want of a better word, for me is of equanimity. Um, feeling the same whether I'm totally alone, this one body in a room only, as in a retreat with lots and lots of beings in the airport, in the train station. And that equanimity has become so complete, having seen, as you said, that there is no cause and effect. There's nothing outside of me that could cause me to feel any certain way, and that I've only felt a certain way negatively because of thoughts that are being believed, and that when that's gone, the peace and the equanimity is always there. And then also, kind of in front of that or on top of that, there's a vibrational resonance, you could say, attraction for certain beings, and you can feel that, right? That certain beings, there feels uh, a connection, a sense of resonance with that soul, which is, of course, not separate to you or me. The one being that's everywhere and omnipresent expresses itself as individual, but not separate souls, energetic, subtle forms first, of which then later a physical form appears for it to experience itself through. And there's a resonance with some of those and not so much resonance with others. And that still remains in manifestation even after seeing the oneness and deeply living like that. In fact, it might even be enhanced, a deeper sense of connection or even attraction with some um, subtle beings, souls, whichever, and their body minds. And maybe a sense of not so much resonance with others, but not from a place of suffering. Just like two similar vibrations will be drawn to each other, two very opposing vibrations, one very slow and one very high, might be slightly repelled. But it's a vibrational universe, of course, in manifestation. It is vibration, frequency. And so, like frequencies attract. And there might also be an attraction between two souls who are going to help each other learn something about themselves or transcend something. Um, Perhaps how to unconditionally love myself, for example, or how to learn to feel safe on my own, in from my own self. That safety's got to come from the inside. And so no cause and effect, because really both vibrations, this soul and this soul that are drawn together, are the same essence, not one thing causing another. Just the stillness, the infinite stillness and silence that you are begins to vibrate, we could say, in manifestation, and certain frequencies line up with yours, right? For example, we all feel perhaps at this point that we'd rather spend time with those who are also on the path and not so much with those who aren't. Again, not a judgment or a rejection or a suffering, but just a preference. And even that preference is simply a vibration. And maybe that's even helpful for the infinite stillness that we are to set all of its bodies together that are, draw them together that are looking to express this truth through realization of the self. Um, and we've all felt that. We've all felt drawn to a particular teacher or teaching, to a particular Sangha or Sangha members, and that will go on, and perhaps even more so. So again, not coming from separation, as you said, no cause and effect, but more of a vibrational resonance, you could say, like attracts like, as we know quite often. So hope that helps. Thanks, Anish.
Slightly longish question. Hi, Helen. In looking at form and formlessness, it starts out as curiosity when examining objects and the space between them, and an intellectual understanding that they are not different. When tuning into the sensation, energetic experience of my physicality, there is more of an understanding that everything is this fluid oneness vibrating at different frequencies. As I move through my day, I see that I am experiencing sort of an equanimity around what is showing up. It's becoming harder to swing with ups and downs. The pendulum of guilt, self judgment has diminished. Minds, opinions, and conclusions are less sticky. Stress, which is mind fueled, seems to be losing steam. Mind created sensations that mind would normally make me panic are less credible. It's not that I don't go there, but it's harder to remain there. Sometimes it seems I have to remind myself of what I am, and other times it feels as though I am just lifted out of the emotional trance or belief by grace. I am more aware that I am not doing anything and less invested in whether this feeling or new experience stays, which has a big pitfall, a feeling of regression. The growing sense of equanimity and the experience of form and formlessness seem to coincide. The obsessive mind chatter about whatever the topic may be is taking up less energy as it is not given the same amount of time and attention previously. And yet, even this is not my doing. I'm trusting more, even when it is difficult. I'm noticing my mind is seeking distraction from this unfamiliar territory. It doesn't know what to do and is looking for a job. I sometimes notice that something is looking through me, as me, spontaneously, and everything seems surreal, including me. Form and formlessness seem as one in these moments. Does this beingness expand and gradually become the only reality? Of course, it is the only reality. I mean, experientially. I notice that some aspects are involuntary and others seem to be practice driven. Hopefully that makes sense. Thank you so much, Helen. Love you.
Thank you, and love you too. And sounds like um, you're deeply progressing along the path. And you're right, the equanimity in our experience and the seeing of form and formless being one substance expressing itself two different ways, showing up as form or not showing up at all, still being here but not visible, perceptible as formlessness, at least not to the senses. It is the same thing, right? The more I realize there is only the one substanceless substance, the formlessness, which can appear as form, um, the less, excuse me, the less triggers I'm going to have inside reacting to things that I think are there or beings that I think are separate to me, outside of me. I'm going to realize they're all just my own formless self, and that the things I feel I want or need, even, or want or need to get rid of, fear, shame, guilt, all of that, are also just my own self in disguise, resistance, physical pain, everything. And when that becomes the predominant experience, for want of a better word, then the equanimity becomes all pervasive. I experience the same all the time because whatever I'm experiencing is the same. And that quietness, that depth of certainty of who I really am and what everything really is just very, very obvious, more so by the day. And as you said, it is the only reality, but it does seem to move from the background to the foreground of the waking state. Experientially, it seems there's some kind of my interest in the mind and phenomena and all of that is waning, and the perception of reality as it actually is very definitely waxing, increasing, moving to the foreground. And of course, that really isn't happening. It's just how it seems to be, just like the moon seems to rise in the evening and the sun seems to rise in the morning. It seems that way, but it isn't really. They've always been there. Um, so just noticing the mind looking for a job, and usually it will look for an employment as a problem solver. It will find subtle problems even here and say, "What do we do about this? You know, this is terrible. I'm losing my capacity to feel up and down, ups and downs." And or some problem it will come up with, and just gently patting it on the head and saying it's okay. There aren't really any ups and downs when everything is me. But also seeing it will bring you these things just to help you deepen in this seeing, whatever it suggests. will be coming from the idea that form and formless are two different things. And from there, the problem seems real from the mind. You can take it and use it in your inquiry and just deepen into this. Sounds like you're doing that already, of course, which is wonderful, wonderful to hear. And thank you very much for sending that in. Thanks, Anish.
I sometimes engage in sexual intimacy with my wife, but as I awake to my true self, I am unsure if this action of engaging in sexual intimacy slows my vibration attunement to who I truly am as pure awareness. What is your view on intimacy with a partner? And there's a part two. I sometimes engage in vaping habits, but I have slowed down a lot. Do you feel that vaping can keep one stuck in a low vibrational frequency with the ego? Thank you so much in advance.
And go to the part two first. If we think we need something, then that's going to keep us in separation, whatever that is. I need, I might have an addiction to spending money, to vaping, even to having sex, um, food, a countless number of things, alcohol, certain substances. And the nature of addiction is that I need that thing. And that's what might slow us down in our awakening. Even that I've just said isn't really true. If we use that sense of need, a couple of questions back, I spoke about this sense of need, and you might want to just skip back a few questions. There was one about the sense of needing and lack. Addiction comes from the idea that I need something from the outside in to make me feel better. So we could even use that. Can that be true that vaping, for example, makes you feel any better? Or is it that while you're actually doing it, and it could be eating chocolate cake or spending money or whatever it is that human beings do to make themselves feel better, that while I'm doing that particular activity, I'm not thinking of how much I need it or want it. So there's no separation there when I'm not thinking about vaping, when I'm actually doing it, as an example. And that's what makes us feel better. It's never the external thing itself, because it's never really external. Nothing has ever caused you to feel better or worse. So if you use the vaping in a spiritual way, it can actually even help enhance your awakening. And most likely at a point where you realize that it isn't separate to you, it will just fall away in and of its own. And if it doesn't, it doesn't also, right? So the first part about sexual intimacy, again, it's not so much what we're doing, but it's who we think we are when we're doing it and why we're doing it. So if I'm engaging in sexual intimacy with someone as a way to make myself feel safer or try to feel more connected or something like that, then it's going to feel like a diminishment of my own life force. I'm going to feel worse when I finish than before I started. And again, the sense of need comes in, right? I need this person to make me feel a certain way. It can't be true if that person is also you. So if instead we use that sense of need and question, is this actually something I'm getting from outside of me? Or do I just feel really good when I do this because for that short time I'm not thinking about anything? And the intimacy that comes from the recognition of who we all are, the one being, whether it's sexual or emotional or mental or spiritual even, is actually an enhancement and can actually increase life force energy. It's the expression of the one self deepening its capacity to express this love that it really is through two different bodies. And it could do that through a conversation in the supermarket, through sexual intimacy, through satsang, and everything in between. And it's always trying to do that. As I pet my cat, The one self is trying to express itself even more expansively through the human body and the cat body. Same when any two human beings engage in intimacy in any form at all. But there is a huge myth in human consciousness that sexual intimacy automatically diminishes life force energy and slows down the awakening. But what actually slows it down is thinking that there is anything that can slow it down. There's anything a separate self can do to actually slow this down. And rather than should I or shouldn't I do this, which of course we've all asked, it's more about who do I know myself to be when I'm doing it and why am I doing it? If this is an expression of love unfolding as an apparent relationship between two human beings, it will simply increase the joy and the life force of both bodies involved. If it's done from a place of should or need or some kind of separation, then it will seem to very much diminish. But it's never the physical thing itself. Always what's going on here around it is more important, or what's going on here in the heart. Intimacy through, when experienced through recognition of who you are, is perhaps the most beautiful thing you could ever experience, whichever way that intimacy manifests. And as we come to recognize who we are more inside, that intimacy is not really intimacy anymore. Intimacy still denotes two beings. And of course, we could use that word, but just to shift the meaning of that word intimacy to one being expressing itself in two bodies, automatically it's on a higher level, then, right? You can feel the energy is very different, even just discussing it like this. So, hope that helps. And yeah, just pondering why we're doing it always. Thanks, Anish.
Dearest Helen, thank you so much for the amazing UK retreat at Briery. There was a deepening that was unexpected, as it was expansive. So it was with a heavy heart that just over a week after returning home, all sorts of fears came up. A full on cold, followed by a scare that I was possibly showing the same pre-cancer symptoms that my mum had. Just a lot of fear, an attachment to the body, and a feeling I can't escape being reliant on this body, that I need this body to be well. How can true nature be seen so clearly and apparently completely, and then boom, back to feeling finite and vulnerable and lost? Any help would be much appreciated. With love and infinite gratitude.
So, when we were at retreat, and I start every retreat with this, the reason why things come up for us any time, let alone after retreat, why patterns rise to the surface, fears and doubts, is because they are asking to be looked at now from the light of who we have seen ourselves to be. And even if we haven't had a big seeing that we recognize, still the real self is waking up to itself, satsang after satsang. And these old ideas about ourselves no longer feel true. So I might die, I'm not safe, I need approval, I'm lacking something. In this recording alone, we've discussed a lot of the common ones. I don't deserve. All of these things are common ways of thinking as a separate self. And they have to come to the surface because we're succeeding in our awakening. Because we're recognizing the oneness more, the two-ness, the me and what I need, or me and what I'm trying to get rid of, or me and what I'm trying to become, or me and fill in the blank, what I'm scared of, or me and this other being, has to show itself because it's so much more out of alignment. It's never been true. And yet now it's really out of alignment. with who you've seen yourself to be, the more you see who you really are, the frequency, the vibration of the body mind increases. And so these slower frequencies like doubts and fears and guilt and shame and anger must come up to be examined. Just like stirring the bottom of a clear lake. It looks clear, and then you stir it, and the mud comes up to the top to be skimmed off. And that's all that's happening here. If you say that you've lost what you saw, then you're missing an opportunity. What's happening is an opportunity to apply what you saw and to live it. Each time you apply what you've seen, you kind of stabilize and embody this seeing. This is how you do it. So you have a seeing, and then you must choose to be it. And life will give you the ideas and thoughts that come up that are in opposition now, just not true. And it's so important. This is why I started at retreat with this, that these are coming up, these patterns, because you're succeeding, not because you're failing. This is the one story that holds us all back. I had this beautiful seeing, and then the mind started talking, and there was all this fear. And, these questions come in really, really often. But if you remember, I kind of spent some time saying that these things would come, and they come to help you embody your awakening so that you don't just know it, you are being it. Same thing happened to me. I'd have a seeing, and then it seemed to disappear completely. But it only seems to be absent, that seeing, for as long as it takes you to realize that nothing is going wrong just because this fear has arisen again. And that this fear, or whatever it is asking you to look at it now from what you've seen yourself to be. So seeing the oneness and looking at what comes up next from the oneness as the one being. Does this make any sense that I don't deserve to have happiness or abundance, whatever, whatever is going on in the mind, given that I've seen who I really am to some deeper degree? So it's always a twofold process. One side of the coin, I'm seeing who I really am deeper. And of course, that happens in a very concentrated way at retreat. And the other side of the coin, which is just as important, if not more so, is to see who I am not. And to go, that's a thought process that applies to a separate self. It doesn't apply to me. I don't need to do anything with it. I don't need to fix it. But most importantly is to change the story you're telling about why you seem to have lost the seeing. The seeing is still there, but the new high frequency you had access to is a little bit clouded with these lower frequencies coming up. But as soon as you engage with those from a place with no story, then they will disappear, and you'll get an even higher frequency possible in the body and mind. And it goes like that, right? I have a seeing, a higher frequency, then I've got to integrate it by questioning what's come up in the mind and seeing if I still want to believe it. And then when I decide I don't have another seeing, and it goes like this over and over and over. It's still going like that for me, just more like this, and it's going on in the background. Doesn't even really need to be given much attention. It would be the same for you if you didn't tell this story that you've lost it. What have I done wrong, says mind? Where has it gone? Why can't I keep it? Does any of that apply to you, the infinite self, if you already are it? What if you change the story, the narrative around this? Oh, this is happening so I can go deeper. Or it's happening because I'm succeeding at awakening. Very, very different. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, I feel totally lost in love. How strange does that sound? Do I need to fill up something? Do I need something from somebody? Never before in my life I felt so happy and fulfilled, and not having the feeling I need anybody to make me even happier. And then this, I don't get it. But then also, there is that thought coming back that I want her to be mine. Terrible thought, I find it, but it is like I act like that. The feeling of being lost is noticed in me wanting to look at to my mobile very often. Did she answer me? Will she write me? I don't do my meditations anymore, nor my yoga properly. Nothing wrong with it, but it is this feeling of being dependent on somebody outside of me. Where am I? Knowing that I am everywhere and that she is me. But when I look whether I can find somebody outside of me, it is for the moment difficult to say no. No, there is nobody outside of me. It feels so real. What can you suggest me?
It's very seductive, isn't it, to have this happen? And again, just to point to the fact that it's happening to help you deepen in your awakening, not to be a distraction. Um, when we seem to experience some kind of joy, pleasure, intimacy coming from the outside in, and we know before that, seemingly there's only one being, we seem to know that. And then suddenly we feel divided into two, and it seems difficult to come back to that unity. Um, and that could be with anything, right? It could be with money or a romantic partner or anything that we feel a strong sense of separation. Um, it's only to gently note that, okay, can I just notice that I really still want to think of this body mind as being outside of me and separate to me? To just notice that. I really want to, somewhere inside, say, this person is the cause of my joy. And when they're here, everything is perfect. And I want to possess them. I want to have that kind of real strong sense of separation here with this person. So just noticing that non-judgmentally about yourself. Wow, here I really don't want to apply what I've seen to be true. If it was a negative emotion, let's say we're feeling lots of fear or something like that, we would say, oh, I really do want to apply this. But here, when something sweet comes in life, no, not really so motivated to do a lot of inquiry. My meditation might fall away, as you said, and actually, my meditation might be constantly watching my phone, as you were saying, and something like that. So just noticing, again, without judgment of yourself, that here there is an unwillingness to apply the fact that this person is not outside of you or separate to you. Just noticing that. Like you would notice um, a painting in an art gallery or something. Oh, yeah, wow, that's unique and interesting. Or you would notice as you would read an email that someone sent you, kind of boring email. Oh yeah, yeah, just a matter of fact acknowledgement. When that um, acknowledgement happens, that I really don't want to apply this here, there'll be some recognition that I think I'm going to lose something if I see that this person is outside of me, separate to me. I think I'm going to lose the that this person isn't outside of me. I'm going to lose something in the seeing that they are me. And I totally get it. I totally get it. Um, if I realize that money is me, it's not going to flow in as fast. If I realize this person is me, the intimacy won't be as rich and powerful and profound. And if I realize this chocolate is me, it's not going to taste as good, right? But actually, it's the complete opposite. The reason this person is even being able to come into your life is because of your seeing who you are. And to help you both transcend this idea of separation here. But to do that, you must let go of blaming yourself. We all have areas in our life where we're just not as enthusiastic about realizing we're not separate to this being or to this thing. And whatever I think I need, I'm going to have some reluctance to letting go of that sense of need, right? Because I think I won't get it if I don't need it. But really, the opposite is true. If I don't need this person, they'll be everywhere in my life. And the joy and the intimacy will only increase What about imagining the two of you sat together in meditation or doing a statement process work together? And maybe you've already done that, but just imagining yourself being, you could even just use your conscious imagining to imagine, wow, I finally overcame the separation here. I finally overcame the sense of duality here. Not even how you did it or when you did it, just like, oh, that's so much better now. The intimacy is richer and fuller. Most of all, the one-liner I want you to remember is you must be judging yourself somewhere in this. And the moment you stop doing that, this will resolve itself effortlessly. So, hope that helps. Thanks, Anish.
Hi, Helen. I've been struggling with this question for some time. I understand that the separate self does not exist and never has and cannot do anything. As far as I can tell, consciousness sees, hears, tastes, touches, and smells. I still believe things are actually happening, but I suspect that might not be the case. I think it's an issue with movement through space. How can I see what is actually happening more clearly with love?
It's a good question. So many good questions. Self-inquiry is the most direct and straightforward way to see who you really are. So to recognize who you really are, the formless, undivided, and indivisible presence, silence, awakeness, beingness, whatever you want to call it. And then to step away, not from phenomena itself, because you can't. Of course, the body is moving around inside apparent phenomena, but to step away from referencing phenomena to tell you anything about you. Phenomena are beautiful and perfect. They're appearances that you are showing up as. But if you still reference phenomena as being something that can tell you anything about you, then there'll be some kind of confusion or some lower frequency. So if, for example, I notice the body moving, walking through the room, it's going to give me, if I reference that, it's going to give me a sense of movement. I'm moving, it will feel like. But if instead I identify as that in which it's moving through, that which is imperceptible to the senses, then I'll feel this utter sense of stillness no matter where the body is moving. So it's a very common thing that comes up to recognize that we are not a phenomenon, that we are the infinite nothingness showing up as all these objects is one thing. And then, of course, later we'll feel that we have to realize that no phenomenon at all can tell us anything about that infinite nothingness that we are. So even to say, I would like to transcend the sense of movement and time and duality and distance, that seems like a real thing for a spiritual seeker. But from that nothingness that you are seeing yourself to be as that, is this even your problem? You that are as you always were and could never be any different. What do you need to transcend? And I understand what you're saying and what you've sent in, but just to point out that if we begin to step away from referencing the moving, changing world of phenomena in terms of our self-inquiry, what can you actually use in self-inquiry to tell you anything about you? Only that which you can directly experience without the senses, because the senses, the mind, will all be gone one day. All that will remain is this formless essence that you are. And so let's do that now. Let's stop referencing what we're seeing through the senses and experiencing as anything that we can use in our self-definition. Again, nothing against phenomena, just that we can't really use it anymore here. Only the formless noumenon, non-phenomenon, that which all phenomena appear inside, can be used as reference to tell you anything about you. And that makes it very simple, right? Very simple. The simplest of all. That's where the joy and the freedom come. So, hope that helps. Thank you, Anish.
Dear Helen, do you know about so-called entities and what to do about them once they have entered the body? I'm a normal person, but I've felt these energies enter my body several times, and they create so much suffering inside me and also around me. The theory is that once this has happened, your vibration is so low that it's very difficult to raise it by yourself. And that is exactly what seems to be like. No matter what I do, I make very little progress. Is there a function to them? I would love for you to shed some light on this matter if you can, and what might be the beliefs creating these circumstances. Best wishes.
Yeah, so the actual problem here is not at all what we think it is. It is really the sense that these things are separate from us and that they have the capacity to affect us or to affect our body. And this has come up again and again in my own path. And every now and again, we'll get asked by various people. But can these things affect you at all if they are you? Can one thing cause something else to happen to something else, someone else? Can a separate entity cause something to happen to you? And that's whether that entity has a body or doesn't have a body. It's just a vibration, but they are given so much power over us in our thought process because we really believe that we're separate to them. And actually, what lowers your vibration, and the only thing that lowers your vibration, is the sense of separation from this. So if I believe myself to be separate from anything, money, time, peace, abundance, entities like you're talking about, then they will seem to have an effect over me and power over me. But the moment I hold firm in the seeing, experiencing my own formlessness, and that there can be nothing outside of that, nothing separate to me, remembering who I really am, then these things have no effect. No effect at all. And we'll realize they never did. It was always the sense of separation that is more damaging than anything else at all. In fact, there is nothing else. There's only this sense of separation. And that lowers our vibration because it is so utterly untrue that we are actually separate to anything. It takes an enormous amount of energy to sustain this sense of separation from anything. Just because we've been doing it for a long time, we don't actually realize how much that energy that is we're having to pay, how much life force that's costing us. So anything that we're scared of like this, it's always the cause and effect, the idea that this thing outside of me or separate to me can cause something to happen to me. And there's such a myth in spiritual circles about this. And of course, I experienced it this way myself. When I was very young, I began to see lots of things that apparently other beings weren't seeing, and kind of grew up like that. It became just a constant thing. And I had to really look at this sense of separation as my awakening really deepened here. Nothing can have any power over me, nothing, because there is nothing to have power over me. And of course, my body too. My body is not separate to me or outside of me, it is me. And so is the entity, as you're calling it. But it's just a frequency. It's a lower frequency only. Let's not give it an intelligence that it doesn't really have on its own. And as a lower frequency meets a very high frequency body mind, the lower frequency is instantly transformed. Just as when we feel fear inside and we really be willing to be with it, that frequency begins to change. So too with anything that comes seemingly from the outside. If you meet it in your high frequency body and mind because you're living as the truth and you insist on not separating yourself even here, you'll see something very different happen. Very different. So the one liner to take away from this, if you believe they're separate to you, this will keep happening. You must really look and see where do you stop and where do they start? Is that really true? Thanks, Anish.
First of all, thank you for all your support I already could experience from you. There is something I am already dealing with for the last 25 years. I call it stress, although I would prefer to label it differently because already speaking out this word is felt in this body. But as well as the illness of Lyme disease is in my body mind, which has an impact on the nervous system as well. I have the impression that although my contemplations, CI, statement processes, the stress is still impacting me a lot. My biggest challenge is to stay in noisy environments or to be around noisy people. I try to see my part in each thing, and I would like to fully see that it has only to do with me because there is nobody else, but in fact, I would only like to disappear or to go and live in a way where I am of all these situations. And now I really want to see the whole truth. I get irritated by so called others, disappointed, and I avoid them. I run away from groups and noise. Something in me says, go and live as a hermit, and another part in me wants to see and really connect with others. Thanks for any advice.
I totally remember feeling this way completely. And this advice, this suggestion, go and live as a hermit, is perfect, but it doesn't mean the body. Be a hermit inside your own consciousness. Be the only one that exists. It's not other people, places, or things, or even sounds or environments that is troubling you. It is the idea that they're other than you. Again, it is always the sense of separation. And whilst there might always be a preference to be having this kind of conversation than in the middle of a busy pub on a Saturday night where you just can't even hear, there's just too much stimuli. Um, the difference is the preference we're not suffering with, right? I would prefer to be sitting, around with a couple of people and just chatting about this kind of stuff than to be, I don't know, at a football match right now. It's just I used to do that, but it's just really not what I want anymore. But I wouldn't be suffering if I had to go to the football match. Why? Because there's no idea that there's all these other beings in this stadium. It's the idea of otherness, separation, duality that really fractures our consciousness, apparently, and really diminishes the life force energy. And then we feel we're in certain situations where there's lots of others, and that just kind of exacerbates the whole feeling. I really had to look at this one. I spent a long time isolated at home, feeling lonely and wanting to be around other beings. And then when I was around other beings, desperately wanting to get home again, to be on my own. And I had to eliminate both of those from my consciousness. I'm not alone when I'm at home. Nothing has changed. And I'm certainly not around others when I'm out and about. I had to really look at this and question this consistently. Are there any other beings, really? or other things. The sound that's blaring in the restaurant or in the supermarket or in the train station, is it outside of me and where am I hearing it from? Because the usual way of thinking, even after we've seen who we really are, is I'm over here listening to this sound coming from over there, separate to me. I'm here, sound is over there, and I'm listening to the sound from a different location to it. But if I'm everywhere, can that be true? Where are these other beings that are seemingly difficult to be around? And, do this first when the body is in a room on its own. Try to find where you stop and the furniture starts. And then you can do it in your imagination. Imagine you're standing in a room with another being. Find out where you stop and where that other being starts. Is there really a boundary? You really must investigate this deeply, though. It's such a common idea, but it's very much to be transcended. And then you can live as this peaceful equanimity, no matter where you are or what's going on. Because life will put you into situations sometimes. You'll need to be around other beings, of course, and may even want to, as we were saying. But not because there's a sense of not coming from loneliness or needing to fill a gap inside ourselves, a hole or a void by being around other beings. Knowing who you are and that there's nothing separate to you outside of you, this all comes into clarity. And that you feel the same then, whether you're alone or with other beings. You're not uplifted by other beings and you're not depressed when they've gone. You're not feeling lonely when they've apparently gone. You're not even feeling better when you get home through the door. It's equanimity is the sign of a deep sense of non-separation from everything. And it's really just simply this one idea of other beings. There's bodies, sometimes only one body in a room, sometimes many, or in a building, or in a location. But how many beings are present? That must be deeply, deeply investigated. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, I am not working at the moment, and it has been like this for the past 5 months, even though I have tried incessantly. This happens every year, but I had never had to wait for employment for so long. And other years, the job came that was what life brought and not what I had applied for. It's like I just don't have it is very hard. It's hard on my family as well. And some have turned against me, saying that I don't try enough. And I understand their fear. It has been a very fruitful period, spiritually speaking, and I have gone quite deep in my understanding. And at the same time, I have met the greatest fears, the erroneous assumptions I hold of myself, and so much resistance that it seems at times I'm going to pass out. I have longed for living in the States for as long as I can remember, and I am working on it. But I have a strong feeling now that this is self will. Could myself be interfering with my current situation? Any sharing would be very much appreciated. Thank you. Love.
Thank you. Could you just reread, I think we lost the sound a bit, the job that it wasn't the one I applied for, just a couple of sentences after that.
This happens every year, but I have never had to wait for employment for so long. And other years, the job that came was what life brought and not what I had applied for. It's like I just don't have any control over it. And I really don't mind not having control, but not working for such a long period is very hard.
Okay,
It's hard on my family, as well as some have turned against me.
thanks. Just the sound cut out just for a moment. Thank you. I do believe that's the last question as well. Yeah, thank wonderful. Thank you. So it's one thing to realize that we don't have any control over this, and you've pointed to a sense of separation. Um, could I be interfering with the current situation? Could myself be interfering with the current situation? So a belief in a separate self is still just there subtly that could get in the way of this process. And also a belief in a separate self that doesn't have any control. So it's a common thing to kind of first have a realization that I don't have any control over my outside environment, where I want to live, or um, my finances or my employment. I don't have any control in the way that I think. But usually we kind of stop there, and we really could do with going a little deeper here. I don't have control over this as an apparent separate self. Why? Because that separate self does not exist. Therefore, all of the things it's been trying to achieve, become, do, and have, um, really that separate self is non-existent, and we can prove that in our self-inquiry. But taking that a little deeper, if we're not a separate self and have never been, then the things that I want are coming, the desires are coming from the real self, the infinite self that I am. And it may look and feel like a desire for a better job or to live somewhere else or a new partner or whatever. But really, what it is for a greater sense of freedom and better feeling, isn't it? If you look at how would you feel when all those things come, it would be for you would feel differently. So if you can see that what you really want is to feel better more consistently, and to realize that that must be coming from the infinite self because there is no separate self, then life can really bring you the things that you do want, the in alignment with what you do want, the jobs and the place to live and everything that match up with what you really want. So going a little further than I don't have any control, actually you have all control as the infinite self. Not that you have to handle everybody's life experience, and goodness me, that would be too much. But realizing I must be the one behind the whole universe. How can I be denied this? These ideas that I might not get what I want, they're prevalent when we think we're a separate self. Or, the possibilities there that I might not get my desire fulfilled. But it's the infinite self when you are literally everything in existence that could ever exist, has, or might do. Then what could stop you? Realizing that these desires are in your heart because they're trying to manifest already, trying to take shape in the physical realm and taking shape as desire in the um, thought field and in the emotional realm inside. Inside and outside being one, not two. So letting go of any sense of not being able to get what you want, and the contemplation technique is very, very useful here. Is it really true I can't get what I want? It's a question I had to ask myself. It seemed really true as the separate self. And boy, we've all experienced it so many times, right? Over and over again. It's been a constant background of our apparent life as a separate being, failure to get what we want. But now, realizing who we really are, we must question this. Is that actually possible? If I am everything and the source of everything, can there be anything impossible for me? And also, just to refine it, what do I really want? Why do I want to move? And why do I want a different job? What is it I want from my job? It's always got to be some kind of feeling. I will feel better when this thing manifests. But as we realize who we are and let go of limiting ideas like this one we're discussing here, that we might not get what I want, we're going to feel better anyway. That sense of absolute freedom that knowing of who we are, the omnipresent consciousness, it is the only thing that exists, is going to come to the forefront. And then there'll be nothing that can make you feel bad ever. And then life moves, phenomenality rearranges itself to kind of give you every experience that will mirror how you're feeling. Right now, life is mirroring the sense that you might not get what you want. What happens when it mirrors the understanding that I must always get what I want? Maybe as the infinite self, I wanted to experience myself as limited and finite for a while. And now I'm kind of done with that. Now I'd like to experience being infinite and unlimited. So I've kind of always got what I want in a way. But now I'm done with this sense of separation. Not because it's wrong or bad, just because I don't really want to feel limited anymore. I'd like to see what that's like. And to do that, we have to let go of these ideas. Our experience is always mirroring, reflecting what we're still holding in our consciousness, but might not be aware of. And this idea is so prevalent in the imaginary separate self. I might not get what I want. So we have to question this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anish, for reading so well. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much. Namaste.